are the ingredients of neurodiversity? What is all included when we are speaking about neurodiversity?
Thank you. Can you kindly now explain to us what is this neurodiversity?
Sure. So neuro means brain, diverse means different. And we all know our suffixes, right? The quality or state of being. So it is the state of your brain processing information differently.
Okay, thank you so much. So, can you kindly tell us what or which learning disabilities fall under neurodiversity?
What type of neural disabilities you said?
Yeah, what are the categories of disabilities
Sure.
falling
Can you go to the
that?
next slide? You can actually go to the next
Next.
slide. Hold on. Sorry. Yes. So these are a good amount of the types of neuro diversities here. So we talk about ADHD, attention hyperactive deficit disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism, anxiety, Tourette's, gifted, depression, auditory processing, and what's not listed on here is, of course, what we're here for, which would be dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, executive functioning. All of these would be in what I consider our alphabet soup. I do not like to use the word disorder, just like I don't like to use the word disability. It is a neurological difference.
So, just to understand more, we would like you to explain to us what are some of the characteristics learners face in the basic education scenario. The learners, especially with dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, and the processing disorders.
So, dyslexia, as we learned, is a neurological difference in how your brain processes letters and whatnot, but also a lot of times what people don't realize is that it can also give a person difficulty in how to process what's going on around them. So I'll give you an example. My child had a very difficult time learning his left from his right. Um, very difficult time tying their shoes, very difficult time making sure that his clothes weren't inside out or backwards. These types of things, which we did not know at the time, were all types of symptoms with dyslexia. And same with dyscalculia is just with numbers.
And for the ADHD, the attention deficit and hyperactivity disorders,
Yes.
what will you notice mainly in the basic education?
So in our classroom, attention deficit hyperactive disorder looks a lot like impulsivity, where children, they're big risk takers and they kind of do things without thinking. Same thing with executive functioning. And a lot of people, when they think ADHD, they just think people can't sit still, right? So at the same time, we know that in the classroom, for instance, I allow my kids to answer questions standing up. If they don't feel comfortable or if they feel like they need to get up and move around, I'm more concerned about whether or not they are answering it correctly. So they are not confined to just sitting in their desks, or if they like a certain section of the room better, they're allowed to move around there as well.
Okay, so we understand some children may be having an issue with processing information. They do not have a hearing impairment nor a visual impairment, but more often than not, they are not able to process the information they get via the audio and the visual.
Right.
Can you kindly expound on that?
So that's kind of where we come in with a multisensory approach to learning and how we teach different ways. So I'll give you an example. We just talked about suffixes, right? When we talked about what neurodiversity is. So I have a game that I play with my students where we cut out puzzle pieces and we use the stoplight. red, yellow, green when it comes to prefixes, root words, and suffixes. Of course, as we're cutting things out, you're working on their fine motor skills.
Yes.
And again, you'll find out where your learners' weaknesses are. Kids either love cutting out puzzle pieces or they absolutely hate cutting out puzzle pieces, right? And so you'll kind of learn where that is. But what they do love is the end result. So they love being able to put the pieces of the puzzle together to come up with a meaningful word. And so, again, all those use all the senses of our bodies, and it allows them to have a meaningful way and something to remember of how to put together a word.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's exactly what should happen. Some learners will not be able to process whatever they hear. So you need to have a multisensory approach. Others will not be able to process what they see. So thank you so much for making that clarification.
Mhm.
So I would like also you to tell us, in the world of inclusive education, where do we place these learners with dyslexia? What are we supposed to do for them to ensure they too are included in the
Mhm.
mainstream education?
Yes. So I believe that's slide 9, right? Are we going
Yeah,
to
it must
the
be slide. Yeah. Asking.
Yes. So can you go
Slide
to
16.
yeah. You can go keep going.
Keep going.
Go to the next one.
Next.
You can go to the next one. Let me see. Okay, so these are what we do for our learners, whether they be dyslexic or dysgraphic or have ADHD. These are the types of things that we need to do in order to make sure that they have an inclusive environment where they feel heard. So, again, we talked about things being specific. So, in America, we have a thing where when our learners become identified, we don't often say the word dyslexia, right? So we'll get the evaluation back and it doesn't have dyslexia on there anywhere. I liken that to if someone diagnosed you with cancer and they said you have abdominal cancer, would that be sufficient for you?
No.
No, right? Like you need to know where in the abdomen because that would really have a major impact on how it's treated, correct? And in the same way, neurodiversity should be treated. So we need to be specific about it. Once we're specific about it, then we can know that they have unique learning needs, correct? So then we can say, okay, this is how they process it. So then this is how we should be teaching a class. Um, and then this is probably my favorite one, which a lot of you all heard today from everybody. Differences can create challenges, but they do not have to be a disability. One of the things that we really have to latch on as a society is that we have disabled the kids with our policies, with our lack of implementation, with our lack of education. We heard from so many of the young people that once they were able to get the services, the interventions that they needed, they thrived. And so it's a matter of doing that a lot earlier so that these young people don't have to go through the trauma that you've seen up here.
Yeah, thank you so much. As we can see, you have really looked at it. You have to be specific and focus on the needs. So you have to do the assessment, understand the student and what they need to be able to thrive. Again, as a teacher, you have to check on your learning styles, how you do it, how you deliver your content. And I equally believe how you also examine and assess.
Yes.
Yeah, so finally, we believe that is a very good approach to the inclusive education. So apart from inclusive education, what do you think we should say? Where does inclusion begin? Policy, paper, where?
Inclusion begins right here. Inclusion begins in your heart. Inclusion begins by seeing everybody for who they are. Um, You go to a zoo, do you expect just to see tigers? No,
No.
right? You don't expect to just see elephants, right? If you get a piece of art, we saw a lot of art this week in Ghana. But when you go and you see art, do you expect to see just one color? No, right? So again, we are okay with what diversity looks like when biases are not attached to them. Biases start where? In your heart, right? So that's where inclusion is. That's how we start. Once we start that way, and just like we see a piece of art and we see the beauty of it with all the differentiations in it, then we can then look at people the same way.
Thank you so much. So we
Mhm.
believe inclusion starts from the heart and the mind.
Mhm.
So if you change it from your mind and your heart, it becomes very easy. But if you have to wait and see the difference from other people, it becomes very difficult.
Mhm.
And finally, just in the interest of time, what is your parting short word?
What does, say that one more time.
Eh, What would you tell the audience as we continue to wind up? So today we've done basic education. Tomorrow we'll
Yes.
do TVET institutions.
Yes. So I would say, as a teacher, one of the biggest things is to learn your learners, right? Like, you walk in, and I count it an honor to have other people in my care. And once I look at it that way, and I look at them as humans who are like my own child, then I can look at it a little differently. I walk into a classroom excited about what I'm going to learn from them just as much as them learning from me. And so I think, to what you said before about mindset and mentality, it's all about how we as educators walk into the classroom. And then what happens is, some of my neurodivergence child's best teachers knew nothing about dyslexia. What they had was relationships. What they had was a willingness to learn. What they had was a willingness to collaborate, not looking at parents as less than, less educated, but all looking at us as the village we are, as the collaborators we are, so that we can help understand each other with this child that we have been tasked to help grow. So I think that is the very first place to start as an educator. And then the last thing I would say is never stop learning. Never stop learning, right? Like, at the end of the day, dyslexia is now this amazing word. Neurodivergence is getting all this attention now, right? But again, it's always been there, right? Dyslexics have always existed. At the end of the day, it's about us having the willingness to learn and then to grow, and therefore figuring out how it best supports this beautiful piece of art, which is our village.
Thank you so much. You have confirmed to us the most important thing is we have to learn. We have to be taking new information every day for us to accommodate them. So finally,
So this is the quote that you all heard earlier, and it's really one of my favorite quotes, right? Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. And what I did with my learners one day was, I walked in and I asked them, as we were talking about intellect, I said, was Albert Einstein a genius? Everybody says yes, right? But then I said, but Albert Einstein could not read. So then I reposed the question, was Albert Einstein a genius? Many of them said no. Many of them said, because we decide, if you can't read, you won't do anything great in life. That is how we were taught. That's how we were trained. And so at the end of the day, I let them know, while I'm here to teach you how to read, I also want you to know that there's genius in each and every one of you, and whatever your strengths are already at the moment. And so I am going to find that genius that's in you, and we will utilize that genius to help you learn how to read.
sure. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. So we have to look for the genius in a person, not necessarily being able to read, being able to interact with numbers, and not being able to do those other things we feel are normal. Thank you so much. We've made our session as brief as possible in the interest of time. Thank you so much.
Do you guys have any questions? Oh, he wants you to go to the last one.
For me, I just want to make an observation on this because if the standard is for the animals to climb that tree, then don't change it. Just try to provide these animals with the tools to climb that tree. What do I mean? Of course, the monkey will do it. We just climb. That is his 40. For the penguin, you can just put stairs which are icy,
Hmm.
and they just climb the tree. If it is for the elephant, based on his strength, maybe you can assign it some tasks to carry the animals up, or you do a pulley system the other side, then to just go up. If it is the fish, you can do an aquarium tube to just go up. You know,
Right?
if it is the dog or whatever, you just harness. So the idea is about accommodation.
Yes.
Be able to empower these animals so that you don't compromise the standard.
That's correct.
Let animals climb the tree, but in their strength, using their strengths,
Yes.
So that is my observation. Thank you.
So what I love about what he did, which again, which is why we're here, we are encouraging more educators and more administrators to think outside the box when it comes to this, right? We already know what the standard is. At the same time, we have to figure out the best way for each of our youth to get there.
Sure.
Yeah.
That is it. And thank you so much for bringing it like that. We are always saying we need to do accommodations and adaptations to ensure those learners with challenges are able to learn in the same environment like the others. Thank you so much for bringing it out
That was wonderful.
so clearly.
I think it was a question back there, right?
Yes, you can do.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I work at a school, and one of the challenges that we're having is that sometimes you find parents are not willing to get their children to be assessed.
Right.
So my question is this: must assessments be done for you to be able to help a child? Because there's that picture you put up there, and there are so many options in terms of there's so many ways that the brain can be different.
Right.
Is it very important that you get the exact nature of the brain so that you can be able to help the child? Or can you just, as a school, just work with what you can to try and make it easier to accommodate the child?
That is a great question. So I will tell you what I do at my school is called MTSS. I'm an academic interventionist, and MTSS stands for multi-tiered system of supports. So basically, I do pullouts. However, none of my kids, unless it's on my dyslexic caseload, that is the only IEP caseload I have, none of my kids have been identified. Okay. So, to your point, I give them the services. However, they have not necessarily been identified as special education. Here's my caveat. My caveat is, and this is not to put myself on a pedestal or my school on a pedestal or anything like that. Every teacher is not going to be you. Every teacher is not going to be me. Right? So while you and I will look at that child and see what the struggle is and do everything that's necessary and even grow that child, I firmly believe every child needs something to follow them. So when they go to that next teacher knows right up front. That next teacher may not even know what to look for. You and I have the benefit of being educated about what to look for. What if that next teacher doesn't know what dyslexia is, never heard of dyslexia, doesn't know how to adjust their lesson plans in order to help that child, right? And then I also think it's beneficial for the child. The child should know their identity. They should know who they are because here's the thing, a child that has dyslexia or dysgraphia or any of what we mentioned up here, that's not just affecting their academics. That's affecting how they do life. And so, for instance, if a child doesn't know they have ADHD or executive functioning and they're just impulsive, what kind of decisions do you think they're going to make? Not the best ones all the time, right? And so, again, if we let them know who they are, and then we can give them the tools um, in order to help them with any pitfalls that might come along with it. But then lastly, I want to address what you said, because I want to tell you, this happens all over in America too. It is very hard to have this conversation with parents. It is especially hard to have this conversation with minority parents. I was talking to somebody during lunch, and she said, here in Kenya, I guess at one time y'all thought it was just a white thing, correct? Like dyslexia only affected white people. In America, at least from where I live, a lot of the stigmatism is only in the Black community. So, like, a lot of the white community are the schools that have the services, right? And so then what happens is by the time our kids get identified, they're 2 and 3 grades behind, and then it looks like something's wrong, right? So my suggestion to you is, being in this group, I have learned how to have a different kind of conversation with my parents. There's nothing wrong with your child. Your child is struggling with this. We need to find out why. Once we find out why they're struggling with this, now we can give you the resources. If you frame it that way, that we're going to find out why they aren't learning in this environment the best way they can, as opposed to there's something wrong with your child, then it looks a lot different. And again, the last thing is relationships. You have relationships with the parents, they're more apt to be flexible and listen to what you have to say is best for the child, because they know that they can trust what you believe is best for their child, just like what they believe is best for their child. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, maybe to add on that, especially in the Kenyan scenario, sometimes as a teacher, when you identify a child has a challenge, the language you use, the attitude you use, the approach is what matters most.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes you find teachers who will even expel children out of class. Tell your mother, no, you are not fit for this school. Can you tell your mother to take you where the children of your kind are taken?
Yeah.
But again, if you are a very good teacher, one, you already identify there is a problem. You call the parents on a very good rapport. The attitude you have is that I want to help your child,
Yes, absolutely.
not that you want to do away with your child. Again, when you are sending them for the assessment, show them the importance of that assessment. For instance, in our scenario, it is very necessary for those children to be identified early through the formal assessment by the EAC team, so that when it comes to assessment and examinations, you have something to show.
Yeah.
When it comes to the normal instructions, if anybody came to your class and found you have an IEP, the individualized education program, somebody will understand. You know, we are against the remedial classes and such things. But if you are taking your time out to support that learner, anybody will understand. So for me, I would say the assessment is okay, but the approach you use and how you send the parents, and after the assessment, how you bring on the intervention also matters a lot. Because again, after the child is maybe diagnosed with a certain condition, then now you now use it as a way of stigmatizing the child. Wewe kaa huko tu. Wewe hata hakuna kitu unashikaga darasa. When it is time for reading, you tell the others, can you read? Let us skip Mary, she cannot read. Yeah, hata wazazi wako wanajua uwezi. You see, the approach, I think, is what matters most. But for assessment, it's good, especially for what will follow after that. But if the parent is not ready for the assessment, kindly don't push it down their throat. Allow them time to accept the situation. When they are ready, they will go by themselves. Sure. There's another question there. Maybe you can come to the mic.
It's actually a comment. One of the things I've realized, if you can never make a mistake, is putting a child on an IEP where the parent is not part or at the center of the IEP committee.
Yeah.
again, that becomes a very big mistake because the most common word you'll be hearing is sijaona progress. Why so? Because the nature of an education for this child, the action point or the key performance indicators, what we call the goals in an IEP for this child, must be determined by the people in an IEP committee.
Yes.
And at this particular point, remember you decided to put the child on an IEP performance, and yet the parent is missing in action, or the parent is not in an agreement with you as a teacher that there is need that needs to be taken care of. Therefore, there is a little bit of a confusion that you're likely to have. And in a Kenyan setup, the way I know it, 99.999%, that child will change school. You know what will happen? Like this round, another school, 5 uniforms in a year. 5 in record, I've seen it. So what happens is the parent eventually, all the way comes again, back in confusion.
Yes.
Therefore, from an experience point of view, if you have realized a parent who is not ready for an IEP, sometimes mental health support becomes very important. And how you deal with it, the words that you use, how you go about that, you're putting a parent on a mental health program, support program, and yet the parent is not in an agreement that is on a mental health matter, then will determine whether the parent will agree with you, will disagree with you. At some point, then it becomes a rock between a rock and a hard place sort of a position, whereby as a teacher you must act, and that remember, it is the right of the child to acquire education. It is not a favor. Then at what point, then as a teacher, do you then look at the case and say, this child has been denied his or her own right, and where should I go? At this point, round table discussions becomes the only option that you can do, and you negotiate for as much as possible. All right? It will help. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarification and addition. For sure, IEP is necessary, but the multidisciplinary team has to work together. The other thing you'll always observe when you're doing an IEP, if you don't set the goals together, we say our child is dyslexic. The child is seeing letters in a reversed way. So we want this child not to write a B for a D and a P for a Q. That is our goal. But when you just do it without involving everybody, the next time they are expecting to come and find what? That child doing a composition. Have we achieved our objectives there? Yeah, so you have to set the objectives together with the whole multidisciplinary team for them to be achievable. They may be very minimal, but achievable. Thank you. Maybe any other question, comment? We are good.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Okay, I'm informed